Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Webtoon Book Club. Today's episode is God of Bath, another story by Ilkwon Ha. Which, if you haven't seen that one, is the same person who made the video game store Under the Barber Shop. It's another. This story. This. As I mentioned in that episode, this is one of the stories that is a little bit more, I would say, unhinged. Or just absolutely wacky and out there. But unhinged is probably a good term for it, because this guy has an imagination that's just it is something else. I'll tell you that. Tell you that much. So, our story begins with our main character running away from loan sharks because he loaned money, or he got money loaned to him so he could, I guess, live a nice life or something. I don't know. But he owes people money. So he ends up hiding inside of a bathhouse, which results in him scrubbing an older gentleman who ends up being the owner of the bathhouse, who then hires him on the spot. And to convince him that to stay, says he has the touch. So, yeah. which our main character very much lets go to his head. Of course, he doesn't really want to work at a bathhouse. But what gets him to stay is, one, pay. And two, there's a competition coming up. And this competition, well, pay, protection, and he learns about a competition coming up. And this competition has a large prize, which I think is a car. I think it's a nice car. So he really wants to win the prize. So what he does. So to win the prize, he has to partake in a bathhouse competition where he has to basically be the best at doing his job or something. I don't know. But he's put under the training of a coworker who does not care for him at all and sees him for exactly who he is. Kind of a self-centered pain in the neck who just doesn't really belong there. Of course, the guy takes it a few steps further and is kind of a jerk himself. But to try and be better at his job so he can win the competition, at night he trains with another newbie girl who just started there shortly before he did. And she basically teaches him and trains him each night. And then eventually, when the guy who has not so great standards with him, eventually they kind of work things out, but not before things kind of just boil to a head a few times. But when it comes down to the competition, he actually does really well. In fact, he does extremely well. Until I think it comes down to the last event. Which I cannot recall if he actually wins or loses that or gives up. I cannot remember. But regardless, in the bottom end, it isn't about the prize. And he ends up learning his lesson that life isn't about just having nice things. It isn't about just getting nice things. It's basically about, well, being around others and the relationships that he can build with other people, which he actually grows really close to everybody in the bathhouse. And whether or not he stays at the bathhouse, again, I cannot entirely recall. mainly because it's not that important of a detail. But this is only a 26 episode story. It's very short. It's very wacky, even if my storytelling didn't really make it seem so. But trust me, if you read this story, you're going to find that it is something special. It is something very special. It is quite insane. And you'll find a lot of this author's stories are like that. They can get quite nutty. Some of them are extremely serious and take themselves so. And some of them are some of the most unhinged nonsense you're ever going to read. And I would say this is probably one of his most unhinged stories he's ever made. As far as being serious goes, a video game store under the barbershop was definitely... video game store was definitely one of his more serious stories that took itself a little bit more serious. It had its moments, but for the most part, it told a story that was meant to be taken more seriously. God of Bath, on the other hand, you're not really supposed to take anything about this seriously. Probably some parts, mainly learning the lessons that the guy learns in such of that matter. But as far as most of the story goes, I would say at least 75% of the story is just an absolute wacky trip. And it's fun. It's a fun little journey. But short story, short episode. So that's really all I got for this. Story list of stories down in the description. Pick which one you would like me to talk about next. And I will see you in the next one. See ya.